You know what I have to do, right? The question came with no prompting as Tegan and Zorvit lounged together in their private study. On opposite ends of the custom chaise lounge that had just been completed for them a few days earlier, Zorvit's much longer legs stretched out, and Tegan's draped over them as he curled into his book. Their comfortable silence had only increased the casual intimacy between the two, and Tegan raised a quizzical eyebrow when Zorvit spoke. "What you have to do?" he repeated, lowering his book to meet his husband's gaze. Though the first few weeks after they had been bonded a second time had been truly blissful, Zorvit had become more withdrawn and pensive as more news of war reached them. Tegan had sensed his worry and fear, though he was sure Zorvit had tried to shield as much of it as he could from the mental link between them. His serious, lost-in-thought expression had become quite familiar to Tegan, though there was a focus to him now that had not been there previously. "No, enlighten me." "I have to find my biological father. Maybe he can help me figure out how to control this magic," Zorvit answered, and Tegan blinked in surprise. He had not been expecting that response. "If I can learn to use it, fight with it, maybe I could go and subdue the warlord. If I can best him alone, the fighting would come to an end." Tegan frowned, setting aside his book. "Traveling seems like one of the most dangerous things you could do right now," he protested. "And besides, how would we even find this man? We know almost nothing about him, not even his name." "We do know his name," Zorvit interrupted, shaking his head. "Tomlin Whitmore. That's what my mother said. I've been—" He trailed off, a tinge of guilt leaking through their bond into Tegan's head. "Well, I've been doing some research, you could say. He was a rather well-known bard. He even came through Ephraia once, though it was well before I was born. I've found out a few things." "Research? How so?" Tegan asked. Mostly he was surprised Zorvit recalled the name. There was little of that night he remembered clearly. "Well, bards mainly perform at taverns and inns, right?" he replied. "So I thought I would ask around the inns in town, and it turns out he had performed at a tavern called the Magenta Marigold once. The owner is an older fellow named Castian, and he told me what he knew." "The Magenta Marigold," Tegan repeated, frowning. "Yes, I know it." "He said the last rumors he heard were that Tomlin Whitmore retired to a human settlement in the south of Altreth around 5 years ago, a port town," Zorvit continued. "He didn't know the name, but I looked over some maps, and I'm pretty sure it's a village called Nymir." "Well, you really did your research," Tegan mused, glancing away. He was not certain why the discussion left him feeling so unsettled. "I don't know, Zorvit. I understand why you wish to seek him out, but traveling is going to be so dangerous right now. I just don't want you to get hurt." Though affection came through the bond at that, Zorvit let out a bitter laugh. "Unfortunately, I think the danger will find us regardless, my love," he replied, shaking his head.